Moa Lundberg got her first hermit crabs in 2009, not knowing that they would become an obsession that would still be following her more than 10 years later. During her decade as a hermit crab keeper, she has made the first ever correct care sheets in Swedish, started the first Swedish hermit crab forum, and been in contact with pet stores both in person and via email to make them change the way they keep hermit crabs. She has discovered how to tell individual hermit crabs apart through seedy patterns, does her best to inspire and help crab owners in Facebook groups and on her Instagram account at LHCS Sweden. She is a local rep for LHCOS, CSJ, and through her love of hermits has acquired many amazing new friends all over the world. Please welcome Moa Lundberg.
Hi everyone, and thank you for watching my presentation on how to use Setal patterns to identify individual hermit crabs. With all their shell changes and their growth and color changes during molts, it can be difficult to tell your crabs apart, especially if your crabs are the same size or if you have a larger group of crabs. On the legs and claws, your hermit crabs have dot patterns of setae that is unique to every individual. This pattern is sort of like their fingerprint and will remain the same, only increase in size with the crabs as they molt and grow. The best part to look at for a pattern is the limb segment just above their large pincer called carpus. It's an area with clear dots, and it's usually easy to see that area even when they're active and move around in their tank. In Cönobita clipiatus, also known as purple pinchers, these dots are dark and easy to see on their exoskeleton. In Cönobita brevimanus, the same dots are yellow and easily visible against the purple or pink exoskeleton. The setae dots in Cönobita violaceans can vary some from molt to molt in how pronounced they are, and can vary in color too. Cönobita perlatus has white dots, very easy to see against the often bright or dark red of their exoskeleton. For example, Cönobita rugosus have setae dots that are difficult to see properly, but instead they have very distinct so-called stitch marks, a ridge of small bumps on the big pincer. These stitch marks will work just as well to identify the individual with. When you bring home a new hermit crab, it will only take a few moments to take photos of their big pincer before you put them into their new home. That way it will be easier to learn the pattern, and you will always have the photos as reference to identify your crabs with. Take several photos from slightly different angles and different movements from the crabs. From the front, from the side, when they stretch the claw or hold it tighter to their body. Different angles can trick the eye and make it difficult to recognize the pattern. When I show others the pattern, I often highlight the dots in a photo editing program with the help of colors. Personally, I find it easier to look at and learn the pattern without colors, but for the purpose of showing others, it makes it simpler. It is, however, very important to color the dots the same way every time, or your eyes will have trouble recognizing the pattern you saw originally. The same thing goes for the amount of dots you color. Use the same dots or you will create a whole new pattern of colors, which can trick you into thinking it's a different crab. These photos are of Neville. The middle is the pattern I usually look at, but if I color the dots differently and add color to a few more dots, like in the photo to the right, the variation will make it look different. Keep it simple. There are a lot of Setal dots. You don't have to use all of them. Look for specific shapes in the pattern and go from there. It can be a geometrical shape, like a circle or triangle, or it can be a heart, or a pattern that reminds you of a star constellation, etc. Again, make sure to color the same dots from photo to photo to avoid confusion. An advice is to choose a specific dot or small pattern within the pattern to use as an anchor to make sure you see and mark the pattern the same way every time. Here you have two of my rugosos. For this species, I can use their stitch marks to track their growth and identify them with. The 4 photos to the left are of Mr. Grey, and the 4 photos to the right are of Lao. The upper row are from when I got them when they were tiny, and the lower row are now, a couple of years and several molts later. As you can see, their stitch marks haven't changed. And here's back to Neville, to show how he and his pattern looked like when he was tiny, compared to less than 2 years and many molts later. The oldest crab whose pattern I followed is Haga. He has been with me for over 10 years and his pattern has remained the same. It's only larger and more distinct now. I noticed his pattern right from the start, but I didn't think much about it until after a couple of molts, when I realized it still looked the same. After that, I began using their patterns as a way to tell them apart, and here we are now. Thank you so much for listening and watching.